A person lives in the earth. It is impossible to break away from it. Love for it and the cultures that go in it came to me from my own grandfather. He instilled the love of the earth in me, for trees and grapevines in particular. Time has passed, and now my dream has come true, and even though it was almost impossible, I had a dream to have my own business someday somewhere. I also wanted to do what my grandfather taught me. I believe that I'm continuing the work of our ancestors who live on this God-given Transcarpathian land and who have been growing crops here from the time immemorial. They protected it like a child and cherished it like the apple of their eye. The Malyi hill is 250 meters above sea level. Here in the Carpathians, surrounded by oak and beech forests, an ancient protected forest on an easy slope under the sun and the wind, Ivan Ursta's grapevines grow. He and his younger son own 4 hectares of land. Another 6 hectares are tended to by their like-minded and dedicated colleagues. The wine grower's path to this hill was long and thorny, but now he's sure that if there's a heaven on earth, then it's definitely here. I studied in Berhove. The school offered industrial production training, because at that time, all the Berhove hills were planted with vineyards. There were 5 state farms in the region, in Berhove at the time, where grape production was based on specialized grape farms. Scientists taught us theory. We sat in classrooms. Actually, we were heroes of socialist labor, who earned the Hero of Socialist Labor Gold Star for achieved yields. Ivan did not get the opportunity to work in his favorite industry in his youth. In 1985, Gorbachev's dry law was introduced. Then, the anti-alcohol campaign, under the motto "Fight Home Brewing of Moonshine," demolished 14,000 hectares of unique collection of vineyards of Transcarpathia. In those days, only grapevines in the backyard survived. The land is small. From among 13 districts, grapevines only grew in 5 of them. Grapes don't grow in Rakhiv, Chachev, Ursta, Perechin and Svalava. They only grew in our vineyard. But today they no longer grow even here. The 600 hectares of grapevines in the Berhovsky county is all that the entire region has. That's pathetic. It's a drop in the ocean on the territory of our mother Ukraine. Ivan Ursta got the long-awaited opportunity to get some land only in the 90s. Then the lands of the former collective and state farms were split among people. Sometime in 1994 to 95, there was an opportunity to acquire the land exactly where we're standing. There was an abandoned collective farm on this parcel of land. It was very difficult to begin this business alone, because planting 1 hectare of grapevines requires very large investments. It cost quite a lot at the time. Even now it's not cheap. There were saplings in the Vinohradorsky county. There were subsidiary farms of the collective farm there, but viticulture had already become a dying industry at the time, and the saplings they grew were far from the requirements of the time when I started planting grapes. I had no choice but to turn to European grapevine nurseries. Viticulture is an organically oriented industry. It's also a costly one. They say 1 hectare requires approximately $7,000 of investments. Farmers invest that money in particular in preparing the soil, planting, setting up drip irrigation, and installing supports and trellises. There is a program to support viticulture and hop growing in Ukraine. 300 million hryvnias in loans are planned to be allocated in the state budget for their development. Today, every form of government support that exists in Ukraine is developed and goes through the Ministry of Agrarian Policy. It includes assistance in the purchase of agricultural equipment of domestic production. It is also the support of enterprises that produce grape and horticultural products, and there is also a compensation for plantations. There also are compensations for the design and production of special refrigerators, juice lines and sorting lines. Now about 30,000 bushes of technical grapes are growing on Ursta's Malyi hill. Growing grapes for consumption requires an irrigation system, electricity, and a very specific landscape, explains the owner. The pride of the farmer, the so-called Ukrainian holubok grape sort, is in the honorable spot. He uses it in the blending of several red wines. He also dreams of expanding his collection with domestic saplings. There is such a grape variety called Citronny Magarach, which I'm very interested in. I would like to add this variety to my collection. It's a white grape variety. I would like something else Ukrainian to be here besides the holubok. Because we have Austrian, German, Hungarian and Georgian varieties, but very few Ukrainian sorts. I plan to organize ecotourism here so that people from Eastern Ukraine or from Europe could climb this hill, take a look at this spectacular landscape with their own eyes and taste the grapes that grow here. I want them to have a chance to taste both the grapes and the wine made from them. Right near the table, we'll build something there. The geographic and climatic conditions of the Carpathians are as if they were naturally created for grapevines. Everything here is like what you will see in a textbook on viticulture, the amount of active annual temperatures and abundant precipitation. These factors are even more favorable than in the southern regions of the country. There is also a unique amount of minerals in the ground. The most important thing is to not overdo it, warns Ivan Ursta. Fertilization takes place while the vineyard is young, so it would rise up and reach the edge. The edge is the lower wire. It takes 3 to 5 years. During that time it can be fed with minerals, well, ammonium nitrate. But after the vines have risen, minerals, fertilizers are no longer needed. And if you give it more nitrogen, well, that's like vodka for an alcoholic. It will consume more than it needs instead of bearing the necessary fruits. After that, we sowed alfalfa as a perennial culture. We mow it down and then put it under its natural roots as an organic fertilizer. We also used hay and ashes. The harvest is a holiday, says the wine grower. From the hill, the grapes are taken straight to the pressing facility. Ivan Ursta did not change this technological process. He does everything the old-fashioned way, with an old-school wine press. Next, the juices ferment in special barrels. He inherited some of the containers and others were given to him by winemakers of the land. That is how a customized wine is born. Winemakers around the world try to preserve the aroma of the terroir. That is, the recognizable details of the surrounding land, the terrain, soil, climate, and even the scent of surrounding plants, a kind of a wealth of diversity, when even familiar vintage wines smell special. In industrial winemaking, such criteria are not taken into account. The terroir assumes exclusivity. That's what it's valued for.
Наша продукція реалізовується, імпортується і в той же самий Китай.
Our products are sold to China, Azerbaijan, Russia, Belarus, and even Georgia. That fact is that there are varieties only grown here, in Ukraine. The best conditions for them are in Ukraine. The climate in Transcarpathia is even better. Winemakers have compared it to the climate in Crimea, and they make great wines. Yes, they make those for their own consumption or for their friends, but they make good wines. Those wines can even compete in foreign markets. A glass of natural wine at dinner is considered acceptable and even beneficial for the heart, blood vessels, maintaining stable blood pressure and well-being. But alcohol is not medicine. In order not to harm yourself, it is better to avoid drinks with dry wine materials. It is worth paying attention to the nutritional value of wine. For example, a glass of red wine contains as many calories as a serving of ice cream. A glass of dry pink wine, 200 calories, and dessert wines, 275 calories. Sparkling wine is lighter, 90 calories. Hippocrates spoke about the measure. It determines whether it's a medicine or a poison. Nutritionists and physicians who study wines and their effects on the body say that 400 grams of red wine per day is enough for men to stay healthy because it has more value than white wine. This dose is 200 grams for women. This norm prevails in Europe. For example, the French drink up to 130 liters of wine a year. Divided by days, it is roughly equal to the figure. The earliest traces of grape wine cultivation were found in Georgian territory in the 6th century BC. Wine distilleries in Armenia are also dated almost to the same period of time. 2 centuries later, the Greeks mastered this art. Ursta does not care when the first tendril quailed in the Carpathians. He enjoys every day spent working on his hill. He talks to the plants and guests, some of which are even birds. He is unspeakably glad that just like in a relay race, his sons continue his business. All I need to be happy is that my vineyards bloom and bring pleasure to me first and foremost. And I have this feeling every day of my life. And I want the fruits of my labor that they give to bring pleasure to my children, my grandchildren, and all the guests who visit our wine institution. The older son runs a tasting room. It was opened last year. We continued planting grapevine this year. My younger son graduated from a winemaker's school and is helping me here on the hill, armed with an in-depth European knowledge. In 2009, a strong hailstorm came through Ivan Ursta's hill. Not a single berry survived. Almost the entire plantation had to be replanted. But there is no bad without good. When looking for low-lying areas for a new vineyard, they found a rock cellar. Judging by the rails for barrels, they were intended for wine storage. Because what is winemaking without proper aging? The younger son, Volodymyr, has settled here. He has built a taste-testing room and is cultivating his own vineyard. And he's taking a good look at his son to find out if he hears the call of his ancestors' winemakers. Viticulture requires a lot of dedication, attention, and time. It is impossible to get away from here because pruning and spraying begins in the spring. It takes a lot of time, and if a person does not like it or feel it in their soul, then it's impossible to instill it in them. I want this land to be filled with vineyards, just as in the olden days, because it was in this area that the art of winemaking was first mentioned in 1478. A wine cellar in Transcarpathia is called a pivnitsa. The old man really likes having guests. He tells local legends, shows 400-year-old stalactites in the cellar, and generously treats the guests with wines.
Ми хочемо відтворити те, що тут було споконвіків на цій благодатній Закарпатській землі.
It was part of this fertile Transcarpathian land since ancient times, that is the production of vintage, well-aged wines. Wine ages in these oak barrels for 18 months. That's the children's age of wine. After that, it matures and is called in vino veritas. After that, when it's approved by the family degustation, my children and grandchildren, my family decides whether or not the wine is truly worthy to be presented to the public. Then it is bottled, and it keeps aging in the silence of the basement right up until the time we drink it. Spend it, or you help us in this matter. These terroir wines can conquer new markets if obtaining licenses for them is simplified. The adoption of the Accordion Bill is pending in the Ukrainian parliament. And winemakers and hop growers hope that the procedure of 160 permits will be simplified. The bill will allow dozens, hundreds, and even thousands of such small farms to develop their business. That is why in France, for example, there are 80,000 wine farms and 60,000 in Italy. There are small vineyards on 3 to 8 hectares of land. Wines from the Ursta cellars are invariable winners of the annual Mukachevo Festival red wine. There it was recognized by both Ukrainians and foreign guests. I'm happy that I live in this land, and even though I have cultivated a small piece of it, a tiny quarter, as far as I could, I'm glad that I make people happy using my own hands and with my expertise.
Радість людям своєю працею, щоб показати це.
And when having tried a glass of my wine, you find something pleasant in its taste and delicate bouquet that will make me immeasurably happy. Everyone at their workplace ought to do something pleasant for themselves, their family, and their environment.
Повинна зробити щось приємне спочатку для себе, для своєї сім'ї, для свого оточення, і тоді слава прийде.
And then Ukraine will be filled with glory.
Поляк, ні угорець, ні румун.
Because nobody else, neither Pole, nor Romanian, nor Hungarian, will be able to convey this sense of glory to Ukraine.
Принести, зробити хорошу справу, і слава прийде сюди.